Hey, Eagles fans, if you're a subscriber to the JAKIB Media YouTube channel, you are already registered to win a pair of season tickets for the upcoming season. That's right, you could win a pair of season tickets for the upcoming 2021 season just for being a subscriber. If you're watching and you're not a subscriber, do it now. Subscribe to the JAKIB Media YouTube channel right now. What do you need to do? Subscribe right now.
Of Birds 365. We are that much closer to the Eagles getting back onto the football field against the Atlanta Falcons come Sunday. That will be the main topic of conversation for the next 2 hours here on Birds 365 with yours truly, Jody McDonald, and my partner, John McMullen, the Mac and Mac guys. Are you ready for some football, Mr. McMullen?
Yeah, ready last night. Exciting game down to the last minute, just like the NFL likes it. Tom Brady has the football, not really last, as we were saying before, trying to with 2 seconds and kind of got a feel. But, you know, almost thinking Eagle-centric when I'm watching these games, Jody. And first thing I said to you pre-game as we talked here before the show, can they win a game like that? I don't think they can win a game like that. Up and down the field, like Super Bowl 52, it's when you're playing a team with a great quarterback in this league, and by the way, I already got egg on my face saying Tom Brady's going to get old. That one's out the window pretty early. That prediction, one prediction, one win. So I'm saying, can you win a game like that? I don't think they can. As you go up and down the field. And I'm saying you can win games in this league a lot of different ways. No, you can win it running the football. You can win it defensively. But to win consistently at the highest level, you're going to run up against a team like you saw last night. Might be Kansas City, might be Tampa Bay, might be Dallas. With that, I think Dak Prescott just threw the football again. How do you keep up? I don't know. I don't know if they're capable at this point. That's what came out of me from that game.
And Jalen Hurts will get the chance to show if he can or can't do it. He just hasn't shown it yet. And we'll find out.
It's not just Jalen Hurts, by the way. I mean, you need the quarterback, you need the weapons, you need the offense, you need the whole 9 yards. And I just don't think they're in a position to win games like that right now. But we'll see. Obviously, they'll have an opportunity.
All right, I'll give you the optimistic spin. I'll put their offensive line up against either of the 2 offensive lines that were on the field last night.
Well, I put the Eagles' offensive line when healthy up against anyone. I do think those were 2 really good offensive lines, though. I mean, Wirfs is great, and Tampa Bay early in his career. Ryan Jensen is, one of the reasons the Eagles drafted Landon Dickerson is because they saw Ryan Jensen and they're thinking about life after Jason Kelce. And they say, that's the kind of center we want. He's going to be physical and throw people around and just intimidate people. And then the Cowboys, Zach Martin, remember, wasn't even out there. But so when they have Zach Martin and Tyron Smith, he got caught for a holding penalty. La'el Collins is back. I mean, when you talk about, I say the Eagles have a top 5 offensive line when they're healthy. In that top 5 is probably Dallas and Tampa Bay, to be honest.
Right. So if they're there with them, it does come down to Dak. It does come down, Jalen Hurts. He's going to have to be able, and we're not asking him to be on the level of Tom Brady. That's ridiculous. He's, as you just pointed out, still going at age 44. It looks as good as he's ever looked at age 44, which is scary. The scarier thing for me is you thought there was a possibility that Dak Prescott could at least come back with a little bit of rust on him. He would at least come back and not be quite as mobile as he used to be. And Dak's not one of your running guys. If you're just purely talking about mobility, I'll take Jalen Hurts over either one of the 2 quarterbacks who were on the field last night. It's the ability to sling it and spin it and throw it down the field and throw it with accuracy. We got no idea if he can get into the neighborhood. We know he's not going to be sitting right next to Tom Brady, but can he get into his neighborhood of the ability to put it where he needs to when he drops back the throw? We don't know that. We now know it about Dak Prescott again. We should have known that he had it before. He misses an entire year, a damn ugly injury that he suffered. Threw the exact same number of passes in preseason that you and I threw. That would be 0. And he went out there and looked like he was Dak playing in the middle of a season when he was playing his best football. That's not good from an Eagles standpoint, because part of, as you're making your preseason predictions and thinking about what kind of season it could be in the division, you were at least hoping that Dak was going to have to grow back into the job, that there would be a little bit of a Dak drop-off from what he used to be. Oh, no, he looks as good as he's ever been, and that is a little scary.
Yeah, it is. I mean, in a lot of ways, it was almost reminiscent of the Cowboys last year before Dak got hurt, where we would throw for 400 yards and they'd still find a way to lose the football game. So I guess if you want some optimism from the standpoint of, are the Dallas Cowboys going to be a good football team in the NFC East, they still have a lot of defensive problems, and that's evident when you can put up that kind of offense and he can't win a football game. That's what happened to him early last season before Dak got hurt. The one thing you're saying, I agree with you on the offensive lines. The Eagles can compete with anybody there, but man, those weapons, and Amari Cooper, CD Lamb, and Michael Gallup got hurt in the game. And if CD Lamb actually caught the football consistently, think what the numbers would be. Think what Dak's over 400 yards as it is, with a ton of drops. And then on the other side, you got Brady and Gronk. Gronk, I think he had 8 targets, 8 receptions, 2 touchdowns. And Antonio Brown's going to be back. If Antonio Brown's going to be Antonio Brown, we might want to shut this thing down right now, Jody. He was unbelievable last night. And then you had Chris Godwin, who was sort of like their version of CD Lamb. The drops drive you insane, but he's always open. He's always available to make plays. I mean, look, there's potential with Devontae Smith and Jalen Reagor and Quez Watkins. We talk about it all the time, but they ain't those guys that you saw rolling out there for Dak Prescott and Tom Brady. The Eagles do have Zach Ertz and Dallas Goedert at tight end. So they're going in the right direction. My concern is, though, they're going to have a tough time in those types of games, but we're not talking about a Super Bowl contender. So, as long as you improve, as long as you get better incrementally, as long as you start getting closer to that goal, but you got to reach that goal in the modern NFL. You have to.
Here's the scary thing. If I pretty much watched the entire thing. I was going back and forth between the Phillies, who found a way to lose a game down to the final strike, and Ian Kennedy throws a no-bite curveball that a pinch hitter takes out of the park, and they end up losing the game. But I watched as much football as I did the baseball last night. I didn't walk away from that game going, damn, they dropped the football all over the place. There were some, but maybe I'm an easier grader. I don't expect every wide receiver to catch every ball that hits his hands every single time. There were a couple drops. The big fumble late almost cost Tampa. I actually thought the Cowboys had a real big chance if they had stewarded that drive a little bit better. And I do question the play calling a little bit on the Cowboys' last possession, and I'm not talking about the 2-second possession that they got back after the kickoff. No, when they could have gotten a touchdown, built it up to more than a field goal that Brady would have needed to come back down the field and play. The fumble that gave them the chance to do that by Godwin was just too much effort. You gotta know yourself, and you gotta at that stage of the game and that spot on the field, you gotta take better care of the football. I thought the wide receivers were good. Gronk was great, didn't drop a damn ball all night long. If you're going to grade that tough on the receivers, yeah, we could be in for a long year here with Jalen Reagor.
Well, I'm not grading tough on Gronk. Gronk caught everything. He had 8 targets, 8 receptions, like I said. Leonard Fournette, one of Tom Brady's interceptions was a perfect screen throw. It just went off his hands. CD Lamb dropped at least 2 that he should have caught. Chris Godwin dropped one. besides the fumble. Yeah, I mean those guys are explosive, but yeah, I mean, Antonio Brown dropped one. Maybe that is the lack of preseason work. Maybe that gets sharper, but that's even scarier if those guys stop dropping the football, because you look at, well, the defense is they do this occasionally. The Cowboys had a couple turnovers. Well, yeah, one was handed to them by Leonard Fournette. I mean, it still counts, but if you sharpen that stuff up, if you tighten that stuff up and that stuff goes away, I mean, Mike Evans is the best receiver on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We didn't even talk about him because of Godwin and Brown and Gronkowski. I mean, it's scary out there, Jody.
And we'll see what the Eagles' young defensive coordinator, first-time defense coordinator, Mr. Gannon, could do, because, and again, give credit to both teams' offensive lines. I'm with you. I think the Eagles have one of the best offensive lines in football. Two of the other best offensive lines in football were on the field last night. Tampa and Dallas would both rate and rank that high. Not near as much pass rush could have been generated as I thought last night, because neither team even feigned running the football. Talk about run-pass ratio. The Cowboys and Tampa combined to throw, 108 times? There was less than 40 rush attempts in the game. Come on, pin your ears back. Get there. If you know the other team is throwing it basically every time they call a play, you got to be able to put more pressure on the quarterback than they did last night.
Yeah, I mean, look, the old school, and I think the Eagles will have a good running attack, but not in a traditional sense, because I think a lot of it will be RPO related to the quarterback. And that stuff's all good. It's great to run the football, but look, people got to get over that, man. They got to get to the fact is now it's turned on its ear. It's done a 180. You pass the football to get a lead so you can run the football. Back in the old days, you used to run the football to control the line of scrimmage and try to get a lead and go about it and manage the game and things like that. You just can't do that against these quarterbacks, because one mistake, the biggest problem with that philosophy is there's such a small window. I just looked it up because I get the Bucs stuff. They had 6 drop passes in that game. 6 drop passes in that game. I don't have the Cowboys. The Cowboys were right there with that number. Imagine if they didn't have those 6 drop passes. You can lead, and it was really the Rams, the greatest show on turf Rams, I think, were really the first team. And Mike Martz, he didn't care. If they turned it over early and they were down 7, they weren't taking the foot off the gas, man. They were just going at you and just constant and constant and constant until you just crumbled under it. That's where the NFL is now, with the great teams, with the really, really good teams, and the Kansas Cities and the Tampa Bays obviously being first on that list, but even the Green Bays, the Buffaloes, they're so explosive offensively. It's just that's how you have to go, unless you find the 85 Bears, the 2000 Ravens, the Buccaneers, the Tony Dungy Buccaneers. You got to be perfect defensively, and I don't know a lot of teams that can be perfect defensively.
I don't know that there is a defense like that in the National Football League this year. Watching the game, as I said, going back and forth between the Phillies and the football game, I thought I had a pretty damn good grasp on it. Maybe I missed 1 or 2 or 3. Could they throw enough flags during the game? 19 penalties. Now, that's accepted penalties. I can remember at least 2 off the top of my head where they turned down the penalties, declined the penalties. So it could have. There were 20 some odd flags thrown last night. And I wanted to complain about, I'm watching, not another friggin' flag. And then they would show you the replay. They were all legit. There weren't that many calls that I thought, oh, my God, they're calling that? Really? They're calling it that tight? No, I thought they were actually making good calls, but both teams were willing to do what they had to do to try and make a play and get caught. It does. It just slows down the watching of the game. I guess if you're Tampa, then you've got no complaints because you walked away with a win. But if you're Dallas afterwards in the coaching meeting today with the players, penalties hurt them and you didn't win the game. Oh, yeah, you got to clean that stuff up because it made it as great a game as it was. And if you love offense, you had to love this game with the quarterbacks throwing as often as they did. It was tough watch because, once again, the NFL, every single play, Al Michaels should get paid extra. Every single time he has to say, oh, but there's a flag on the play. They should get an extra $100,000 for doing it as many times as he does. Ridiculous the way the NFL legislates itself.
Yeah, I mean, I've literally been writing about that for 2 decades, literally used correctly. I mean, this league is so over-legislated. But I got to be honest, I'm with you, Jody. I didn't think it was a poorly officiated game.
No.
Obviously, the problem with the NFL is this. It always comes down to one big play. And last night it was Antonio Brown on a back shoulder. A lot of people thought he pushed off. Should have been offensive. To the naked eye while I was watching, I said that's offensive pass interference. That should have been called. It wasn't called. You know, people are jumping on. Obviously, if they're Cowboy fans, they hate it. If they're Buccaneers fans, they're making excuses. Oh, he was off balance. Blah blah blah. Those are really difficult calls. I can't. I'm not. I really despise when fans concentrate on officiating. One, it's really difficult to do. 2, they make it so hard on those poor guys because of the over legislation. And to that latter point, I have no idea. I've talked to you. We talked about that pre-show too. I've talked to people in the league office. I said, do you realize how over legislated this game is? Nobody does. I always get, what are you talking about? I've talked to Runyon about this. What are you talking about? And I always spin it to him like this. I say, you're trying to expand this game. This is a uniquely American game. They're trying to open up markets, obviously in Europe. Everybody wants to be in China because of that economy. They're trying to open up this game. And remember, nobody around the world is indoctrinated to football. We grow up with it here. So it makes sense to us. Now, if you can imagine, it's hard to do, Jody, but if you can imagine growing up in a different country, you wouldn't know what the hell's going on in an NFL game. You wouldn't know because you didn't grow up with it. It's so complicated. You got to explain these rules. I'm saying you're trying to open up new markets and making this game as difficult to understand as humanly possible. I joked about Darius Slay early this week. You know, people jumped the gun and said, oh, he said Rodney McLeod isn't playing this week, which is not necessarily the case. He just didn't understand the rules, and he plays the game. The most famous example would be Donovan McNabb, and people laugh at him about ties. Yeah. He didn't understand. There's so many players who don't understand the rules of the game. Nobody can understand the rules of the game. I've gone back and forth with Terry McCauley, who wasn't sure about a particular rule they changed. It's absurd how over legislated this game was. But while I say that, I did not think last night was poorly officiated. I really don't.
No, and NBC did a nice job of giving you the camera replay that you needed to be able to make your own call while sitting on your couch at home and watching it. A couple of, as you're watching naked eye, no, what is that? Oh, are they throwing a flag again? And then they show you the replay and go, oh, yeah, that was a hold. Oh, yeah, he pulled him down with throwing him. Yeah. Oh, the quarterback was going to get killed if he didn't hold on that play. Yeah, and you did see it, and you said, damn, those referees made it at full speed. Full speed didn't look that way to me, but you see these slower motion instant replay, and you, oh, damn, they got that right. So I will disagree with you a little bit on selling it to other countries. They're learning right along. We have an issue. When I say we, I'm talking about you and me, 2 50-year-old white guys who've been watching the NFL for 4 decades plus. We've watched the change. We've watched it go to this over legislated game. If you're jumping on for the first time, you just think this is the way it's always been played. You don't know.
Yeah, that part of it, I agree with that part. What you're saying, yeah, they're used to it. That's all they've ever known,
right?
But that's not my point. Is okay, they're used to it. That's fine, but it's still so complicated for them. They're used to soccer, which they call football, obviously, which is a really simple game when it comes to basketball. Really simple game, really easy to pick up. Even hockey, something of that nature. Football isn't like that. It's not like that. Now, I'm not saying there's not intricacies to all those games. There are. I still can't figure out offsides in soccer. There are certain things that are a little bit, but the game as a whole, it's easy to explain to new viewers. I don't think football is. I don't think it ever has been. But I got in an argument once with a big soccer fan, and I never thought about it this way. People in America often complain about soccer and say it's not exciting. There's no scoring, and obviously we like scoring. You see last night, and he said, "Well, you have a 3-2 game. You say there's no scoring. What is football? It's 6 points if you score. So what if they made it 6 points? So all of a sudden 3-2 is 18-12." And it looks like more offense. It was, I never thought about it that way before, but we're indoctrinated to, okay, that's 7 points, that's 3 points, blah, 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 and we move on. I just think from the understanding, from teaching people the game from square one and going through it with Jordan Mailata, literally going through it with them, it's so complicated. They don't understand it. It's and nobody in Park Avenue has their thumb on that.
I'm not a big enough soccer fan to make a definitive statement here, but I'm going to try anyway. That 3-2 argument would be if it were given 6 points per 7 points per goal, all of a sudden it would be 21-14 instead of 3-2. Very few soccer games are 3-2. They're much more 0-0, 1-0. 2-1. They don't get to 3-2 that often.
No, you're right, but they occasionally, Man City, they just won a couple games in a row, 5-0. So all of a sudden you start looking at, okay, 5-0, it's 35-0. Wow, they're good. They're good. I'm just saying it's how you frame it. You're right. I mean, if you don't like that, I agree with you. There's way too much standing around. It's not for me. I'm on your camp there, but I do think the point that he made to me about, well, you're just used to them calling that 6 points instead of 1 point, which I think is a valid thing to bring up, and I never thought about it before.
If soccer wants to have more scoring, then they should do that immediately. I'm telling you, it's not going to change the perception much at all. All right, he's Johnny Mac. I'm Jody Mac. Mac, Birds 365 guys. We will get our number one guest. He has made more appearances than anyone else on Birds 365 for the 5+ months we've been doing this. Our boy Ed Kratz is going to join us before the Eagles and the Falcons. We come back, we'll turn our attention there. We've been talking more about the Cowboys and the Bucs to get today's start. Eagles made a roster move yesterday, practice squad roster move, so it's not going to have any immediate impact on this team. They did have practice. Once again, Brandon Brooks limited. We got a bunch of things we need to sink our teeth into prior to game number one, Eagles and Falcons. We'll continue the conversation here on Birds 365.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.